Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, the final episode of Star Trek Picard hit our screens and it did not disappoint. We had some action in there with the big space battles. We had some emotion and some really heartfelt scenes with some of our characters, classic characters, some of the new characters. There was a lot of emotional weight in this episode. There was some excitement, some action, and we're going to take a look at all of that, break down the episode, and see what we can uncover. But before we do that, I've got a huge announcement for you guys for the channel. On Sci-Finatics next week, I will be doing a one-on-one interview with Elnor himself, actor Evan Evagora. Look out for that. Make sure you click on subscribe and ring the bell and all that sort of thing so you'll know when it's coming up. It will be next week sometime. I'm not exactly sure when I'll get that up online, but it will be an exclusive interview with myself having a chat to Evan about his experiences on Star Trek Picard from season 1. So without any further ado, let's get into our last episode of Picard. Let's see what treats this episode had for us. So the episode begins with Narek running across the landscape to the crashed Borg cube, which he promptly infiltrates. We then go to a nice little scene here with Seven and Elnor. Elnor saying, poor old XBs, they got no home, they got nothing to live for, what are they gonna do? And Seven's kind of saying, well, I'm an XB, like, you know, what do you want me to do? Just put my gun to my head and get it all over with. We can make the best of our lives here. It's a nice scene here between Seven and Elnor. I definitely feel like they're retooling this relationship between Seven and Elnor to kind of take the place of Icheb. Seven kind of had a great loss with Icheb. It definitely seems like Seven's kind of taken Elnor under her wing a bit, and it will be interesting to see how that relationship progresses in the second season of the show. And Narek is sneaking around the Borg cube, and it appears like that Narissa has been on board the whole time. Last time we saw her, she was surrounded by a whole lot of XBs who were kind of attacking her, and you kind of saw transporter lights and stuff going on to imply that she'd beamed out of there. I kind of assumed that she'd beamed up to one of the Romulan warbirds that were leaving for the planet. She'd obviously just done a site-to-site transport and beamed somewhere else on board the Borg cube, so she's been stuck hiding out in some cupboard somewhere on the Borg cube all this time. So back at synth headquarters, Picard's being held under house arrest, and he has a little bit of a touching moment with one of Sock Dr. Sung's artificial butterflies that he lets sail away off into the landscape and wishes it farewell and says how lucky it is to have its freedom. Soji enters the room after does a bit of an eye scan thing, which is overseen by Jurati. So Jurati's kind of learning what she needs to do to access Picard's room by using an eye scan in this case. And there's a nice little moral scene, Picard giving one of his famous speeches to Soji here about going straight to destroying everybody isn't perhaps the best course of action, and you know, you need to use your imagination and kind of not think everybody's out to get you all the time, because you know, all they're doing is fostering fear. And it's kind of a nice you know, noble scene here with Picard doing what he does best, and that's sort of give rousing speeches and try to convince people of the right thing to do. We then launch into our opening title sequence. I gotta say, a little bit like in the last episode when they sort of spoiled Brent Spiner's appearance in the episode 9 by having his name pop up in the opening credits. Again, this episode, Jonathan Frakes, right on screen, right in the middle of the opening title sequence. We sort of thought that, okay, Riker's probably going to show up to save the day as part of the Federation squadron. It would have been nice to keep this moment a bigger surprise. I know there's a lot of people that just skip past the opening credits, but I always watch them, and I think spoiling big moments by putting actors' names in the opening title sequence probably isn't ideal. Let's face it, you know, great to see Jonathan Frakes going to be in this episode. So Narek packs his little lunchbox with a bunch of grenades, and he tells Narissa that he's heading off to go and use them to take out the big ship killing flowers, but I think he's kind of more planning to use them to take out the antenna array that's summoning the synthetics from the alternate dimension. And as Narek leaves, it looks like Elnor is not too far behind. Next, we go to a scene on the last arena with Rios and Raffi trying to repair the broken part of the engine that isn't working. They're looking at this device that Saga's given Raffi, which is the magic imagination fixing device. Rios is kind of a bit scared to use it, think it's going to eat away at his soul or something. And there's a couple of little nice lines in here that highlight the slight level of ludicrousness that this device actually kind of performs. And after a bit of toing and froing, Rios manages to use his imagination and fix the broken part of the ship. A bit too easily, really. The old Deus Ex Machina plot device, which is kind of just get out of jail free card. Like, oh, we've got this magical device and it will magically fix everything and everything will return to normal and we'll be perfectly fine. However, at least they kind of make a little bit of light of the situation, and Rios even says in this scene, it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense, and he actually says that in dialogue. At least is the writers maybe tipping their hat at the somewhat convenient nature of this magical imagination fixing device. If you're a fan of my channel, now you can order exclusive Sci-Finatics merch, care of Spreadshirt. Check out the awesome collection of quality tees, hoodies, caps and mugs in lots of quality styles for both guys and girls at very reasonable prices. Spreadshirt posted out at warp speed from their USA store or one of their many other international stores closer to you. So check it out, and thanks for supporting the channel. So next we get a scene with Dr. Sung and Jurati. Sung talking about all of Maddox's research that Jurati's looking at in the computer system there. And we kind of learn in this scene that Jurati's allegiance isn't so much with the androids after all. And it kind of seems like she's kind of hung around on the planet, feigned her allegiance to the synthetics as a means of just hanging around a bit closer to Picard so she can ultimately bust him out of house arrest. So meanwhile, Narek's chucking rocks at the windscreen on the last arena, and Raffi and Rios sort of say, well, keep doing that, buddy, and we'll launch a photon torpedo at you, see how that works out. But it seems like Narek wants to smoke the peace pipe with these guys because he's got a bag full of grenades he could be chucking, but he's just chucking a few rocks to try to get their attention and say, hey, we've got a whole lot of synths trying to build an antenna to call these uber synths to come and wipe out all organic life on the galaxy. Maybe we should start working together to help prevent this rather than work against each other. So for the moment, it seems like Narek is maybe teaming up with our crew. So Narek sits down with Raffi and Rios and basically tells him that the synths are building this antenna array and they're going to call on all the other synths to come and wipe us all out. So it makes sense that it's in our best interests to work together on this. We have a common enemy and we kind of need to be starting to think about the bigger picture here. So kind of reluctantly, I think Rios and Raffi are kind of hearing the sense in his words when Elnor comes bursting in, sword at the ready, and he's ready to perhaps take off Narek's head, which he kind of has a thing for. Narek is kind of, oh, no, I'm wanting to live here. I'm wanting to live. I choose life. Don't cut my head off, please. Thank you, Elnor. To bust Picard out of house arrest, Jurati kind of distracts Dr. Sung, who happens to be working on the dead body of the android Saga. Jurati kind of gets him out of the room so that she can pluck out the other eye, that one that didn't get stabbed in last week's episode. What is the deal with all the eye stabbings? We've had quite a few instances of eyes being plucked out in this series so far. It's definitely a recurring theme. So Jurati plucks out Saga's good eye. Jurati's working on things to bust Picard out. So back at the last arena, our guys have made a little campfire out, telling of some ghost stories around the campfire. Not sure why they're doing this. They could just be sitting on board in the comfort of the ship, but for some reason they've made a fire outside the door. And Narek's telling the guys all of his creepy Romulan kids' campfire stories about prophecies of Gan Medan, where two sisters who are twin demons, they open a way to unleash very bad demons. And one sister's called Sebnatan, and she's the foreteller who has drums made of the skin of children. The other sister, who is Seb-Sheneb, who's the destroyer, where the sky's gonna crack, and out come the demons. We have 1,000 days of pain, and the world's gonna burn, and just all that really kind of nice, positive stuff. So he's kind of really instilling the fear of the Romulan boogeyman into our crew here. These androids that are going to be summoned through the portal are pretty bad news. So it's kind of just reinforcing the new alliance here between these guys, that they kind of need to work together to stop all this graphic Romulan storytelling to come to pass. Next, we've got Commodore O on board the bridge of the Romulan warbird and all the fleet heading through hyperspace to get to the planet. Commodore O now is in the whole Romulan uniform and everything. It's like, what did she go and give? Did she go and give her notice at Starfleet? She kind of took off the yellow Starfleet uniform and said, I'm just handing this in because I got to go and join my Romulan fleet that's kind of going to go and wipe out this planet, so just letting you know, giving me notice here as head of Starfleet security. I wonder how that played out. Our team works out they got to smuggle some grenades into the synth compound, hidden in a soccer ball, it would seem, in order to be able to blow up the antenna array that Soji's working on to contact the Uber synths. And this is around the same time when Jurati is breaking into Picard's room using the eyeball she's plucked out of Saga's head. Picard's having a bit of a nana nap in the room. He's a bit tuckered out. But Jurati kind of says, we got to go. Back to the ship, come on. Dr. Sung is in his lab and he's busy kind of transferring the memories of Saga into a kind of a module thing. And he comes across some memory recordings of the moment she was stabbed in the eye. And initially we think it was Narek that did the stabbing, but no, he was kind of there as a witness, and it was in fact Sutra that did the whole eye stabbing, murdering part of the of the job. And Dr. Sung is not too impressed by this at all. So as our team puts their little plan into action, plant some bombs at the bottom of a radar tower, just when they thought they'd get sprung by Dr. Sung, he's kind of encouraging their course of action here. The newfound evidence that he's discovered that Sutra is the cause of Saga's death has appalled him enough that he now is no longer on the side of let's open the portal and let all the crazy ubersynths destroy organics. Maybe let's just put a pin in that for the moment and stop that for now. Next, we have a nice scene back on the last arena with Picard and Jurati, who've now made it all the way from Synthville back to the ship because they've got to worry about Uber synths coming through portals. They've got to worry about Romulan fleets of 200 plus warbirds, and they've only got about 6 or 7 minutes to do it all in. So the pressure's on. This is a really nice scene between Picard and Jurati here where they're kind of debating what they're going to do. And Picard, as he does best, gives one of his very rousing and emotional kind of speeches about what it's like to be alive and what it's like to be human. It's a really nice scene, and it's very well written. And there's a nice little line here in this scene from Jurati while Picard's got the whole ship up and running and it's sort of taking off. Jurati gives Picard his famous line to him and says, "Make it so." It's a nice little moment between these two. So Dr. Sung now working with our team. I'm going to pull a bit of a fast one on Sutra and Soji. Dr. Sung kind of takes Sutra aside. He's got the brooch in his hand that Sutra used to stab Saga in the eye. And Sung basically says, "Hey, you're sprung," and he uses a kind of EMP device to disable Sutra. So there's a really cool moment here with Picard learning to fly the last arena, having only just kind of watched Rios do it himself, and he's trying to control the ship, and Agnes is kind of doing a thing where she's asking a lot of questions, and he's just saying, "Shut up, I haven't bloody piloted a starship for like 30 years or something, just cut me some slack and just let me concentrate here so I don't crash the thing or explode us." And Jurati sort of says, "Oh, yep, sorry, good idea. It's a nice little moment between these two. I love the little moments of humour. They've been really well received, I think. So back in Synthville, our team are trying to take out the radar array that Soji's busy trying to get activated. The soccer ball with the bomb inside it, which Rios opens up, but Soji manages to catch the grenade and throw it away into the sky, and where it explodes before it has a chance to do any damage to the antenna array. Meanwhile, back on the Borg cube, it looks like Narissa is trying to target La Serena with Picard and Girardi on board, and to take it down using some of the weapon systems on board the Borg cube. In comes Seven, phaser in her hand, and starts kicking Narissa's butt. And we've got a couple of femme fatales here going at it on board the Borg cube. And despite putting up a admirable fight, everybody knows don't cross Seven, because when you get on Seven's bad side, bad things happen. As Narissa soon finds out, as she gets boot in the chest and a bit of a drop over the edge of the Borg cube, which doesn't seem to have too many safety railings. They really need to up their work and safety practices on Borg cube, because there's plenty of little edges where you can just drop off without any guardrails whatsoever. It's too late. The Romulans are here, and Commodore O has shown up, or General O, or whatever name she's going by these days, and they're about to lay waste to one synth colony. So it looks like it's time to put some giant space flowers into action, send up the orchids, and cross their fingers and hold their breath. Well, the fight doesn't seem to be going all that well for our giant space flowers. The orchids are putting up a bit of a fight and taking out a few ships, but it just seems like the Romulans are just making a bit of potpourri here. One thing I was kind of a little bit surprised about during this space battle is we had the orchids attacking the Romulan warbirds, and we had the Romulans attacking the orchids. And meanwhile, Picard is just kind of flying around the sky, kind of just doing nothing but just avoiding disruptor fire. He didn't really seem to be engaging in any form of space combat. I thought maybe he might have actually tried to do a few attack runs on a few Romulan warbirds and kind of maybe help the orchids a little bit, but no, I don't think he was helping the orchids much at all. I think he was just flying around the sky a little bit and just kind of avoiding a space full of shredded petals. There was so much clutter in this space battle. I would have liked to see some of the flowers actually attack some of the Romulan ships. Instead, it was kind of just a bit of a mess. It wasn't really very tactical. A lot of disruptor fire going on, and just a lot of shredded plant leaf everywhere. And it's next we get a nice little reference to the legendary Picard maneuver that Picard engaged whilst captaining the Stargazer, where he made a ship appear as if it was in two places at once. Girardi reminds him that they've got the special little imagination doohickey that just magically fixes all your problems and solves all of your issues. So she says, hey, we can use this device here to do the same thing. We can make our one ship appear like a whole fleet of ships if I use my imagination correctly. So this little device is certainly coming to good use. They should market this. It's kind of like it's a get out of jail free card for everyone. Picard's kind of realised that the only way he's going to teach these synths a lesson, that the humans aren't there to hurt them and they're there to help them, is if he offers to lay down his life to save them. And although Girardi's idea wasn't necessarily a bad one, the ruse was short-lived, as the second that the La Serena took one hit from a Romulan disruptor, which sent it spinning out of control, the Romulans pretty much knew they were dealing with a sensor echo. So the beam activates and shoots up into space, where it starts to open the portal, just as the Romulans are about to start attacking the synth colony. And that moment we were all expecting is finally there, which was the cavalry showing up with all the Starfleet ships arriving at Gulian 4 under the command of Captain Will Riker. He's on the command vessel, the Zheng He, which is named after a Chinese mariner, explorer, diplomat, and fleet admiral of the Ming Dynasty of around the early 1400s. And there is a sizable Starfleet presence here to back him up. It's a cool new design of Federation Starship too. Kind of looks a little bit reminiscent of the Enterprise E, maybe only a bit bigger. The stage is set for a pretty epic space battle with Riker in command. And Picard does what he does best. Use the gift of the gab to talk Soji down off the proverbial ledge and to shut down the beacon so all of our little mechanical space caterpillars don't come through and wipe out the galaxy. Here we are, we've got hundreds of Romulan ships and hundreds of Federation ships all poised for battle, and not a single phaser is fired. It's great to see Will Riker on the bridge of the ship doing his thing. No action. I thought they might have at least had a little bit of a battle before everybody respectively pisses off to back to where they came from. But no, it would have been nice to see something. I think there was such a build-up for this fight. You're seeing these huge fleets of ships standing down against each other. I think everybody expected them to, engage in some form of combat. I would have probably rather seen that than just a bunch full of space potpourri with all the flowers being shredded into mulch. So now the Romulans have fled and Riker's taken the task force back to Federation space. Picard's not feeling that well. His syndrome has overcome him. He's collapsing on the floor. He's clearly not in great shape. So Soji beams Picard and Jurati to the colony where everybody else gathers around. Everybody is crying and sobbing, and it's a touching scene. It really is. You kind of feel for these people. They've gone on a huge journey with Picard, and they've let him into their hearts. And now his illness has overwhelmed him, and he passes away on the ground. It really is a touching scene. It hits you in the heart, and as it should. So after a couple of poignant and emotional scenes with Seven and Rios, and then Raffi and Elnor, all lamenting the passing of Jean-Luc, all of a sudden we're back with Picard again, this time in his chateau office. Looking a little bit different than how we've seen it throughout the course of the series on the holodeck of the La Sirena. Very greyed out and featureless. Picard wakes up, we're reintroduced to Data. Picard is clearly in some form of afterlife, or so he believes, but it isn't really an afterlife. It's more like a massively complex quantum reconstruction. When Maddox left the Daystrom Institute, he downloaded all of Data's memories out of B4 onto, let's call it a portable hard drive, which he took with him to Coppelius. And it seems like Data's consciousness exists within this hard drive, this massively complex simulation. And Picard and Data share this very, very touching scene where they go over when he sacrificed his life for Picard, and how Picard did kind of the same thing to help Soji and her people. And it's a really nice scene with these two. It's a very poignant and heartfelt farewell to the Data character. We kind of know now that Data's not going to come back. This is our last farewell for Data. We sort of didn't get a chance to say a proper farewell for him in Nemesis because it was all so sudden. But I feel this scene between Picard and Data, a really nice farewell between these two characters. Shortly thereafter, Picard wakes up in his brand new android body. They've downloaded Picard's memories and consciousness into this golem body that they'd been working on in the lab. And he looks no different than he did the day before. I thought maybe they're going to make his body a little bit newer. No, he's exactly how he is. Hasn't been de-aged. He's still an old man. And I'm not sure how Picard feels about this. It's like, well, you could have made me a little bit younger, maybe, just maybe shaved a few years off. But, at least he's got a brand new body now, and he hasn't got the Irremotic syndrome anymore. He's going to live out the rest of his years as he would have if he hadn't had the illness. So at Data's request, Jurati and Soji, Dr. Soong and Picard gather around the portable hard drive thing where Data's consciousness is stored, and as Blue Skies plays in the background, Picard one by one starts to deactivate Data's consciousness. It's a touching moment in the construct. He lies down on the couch and is comforted by a earlier version of Picard in his old Next Generation uniform as bit by bit Data fades away. It's a very touching scene as Blue Skies plays in the background, and it certainly had a nice emotional weight to it, and it was a really good way to say goodbye to the character. And as our crew comes together back on the last Serena, we see Jurati and Rios still have a little bit of a spark together. For some reason, which seems quite out of nowhere, we've got 7 of 9 and Raffi holding hands, it would seem. Got no problem whatsoever with having a lesbian couple on the show. It just seemed to be out of complete nowhere. Previously established on this show that Raffi was previously married, she's got a son, and obviously back on Voyager, Seven had a relationship with Chakotay for a brief period of time. So both characters had been established as heterosexual, but now it would seem like they're a bisexual pair. I don't object to this, but I just think it kind of a little bit sudden. There was no establishment for this relationship. Let's build the relationship a bit. Just let's not have it just come out of completely nowhere. And we see Elnor and we see Soji, where she could have stayed on the planet with her people, but no, she wants to get out and wander and see the galaxy a bit more. And they've now apparently have lifted the ban on synthetics, so Soji and Picard are free to roam the galaxy without any form of retribution or imprisonment or anything like that. So good for them. And Picard gives the order to engage as the La Sirena goes to warp off towards season 2. I really enjoyed this final episode of Picard. It was a great first season of the show. The story and characters and way it all developed was really engaging. I think the new cast is really good. Obviously, throughout the course of the season, there was, all manner of speculation, which, everybody, myself included, was kind of, toying with ideas of, oh, Q's going to be in this. Maybe Q's going to show up for the final episode. There was even a leaked photo last year of someone wearing a red glove on a blue screen set, and everybody was saying, oh, Q's going to be in this episode. Well, no sign of Q. He wasn't in it. That was definitely a bit of a misdirect there. Also, a lot of people were saying, oh, Dr. Sung is clearly Law. He's really Law and he's up to no good. Well, nope. He was who he said he was. He was Dr. Alton Sung. He was a cyberneticist working with Maddox at the place, and he turned out to be exactly who he said he was. There was speculation that Worf was going to show up at the end of the season to help in the fight. There was all manner of speculation as to things we were going to see. But let's face it, it was fun to speculate such things during our viewing course through the whole first season. So look, I cannot wait for season 2 to come out. Hopefully that won't be delayed too much with everything that's going on in the world with the virus and all that sort of stuff at the moment. In the meantime, I'm still going to be here putting out my reviews. Obviously, we've got Discovery Season 3 starting up soon. I'll be starting to look at that. I'll be looking at some other sci-fi TV shows that are on air at the moment or that will be starting soon this year. So I'm not going anywhere. So as always, guys, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share this video, and please everyone stay safe in these troubled times. And I will see you again very, very soon.